You were born in a village so small, it didn't even deserve a name. Thatched roofs, mud paths, goats louder than the priest. Your father died digging a noble's ditch. Your mother washed rags for pennies until the river took her in winter. You survived, barefoot, half-starved, and full of mischief. They say a jester is born, not made. And from the start, you had something different. You could copy any voice. You'd make the blacksmith roar with laughter by mimicking the Lord's voice, ordering 2 pounds of dignity and a side of pride. You made the women chuckle in secret with your faces and rhymes. But you didn't know the rules of the game yet. You mocked the priest's limp and the merchant's drunken stutter. You thought everyone loved your jokes. You were wrong. Some did, but others waited for a chance to wipe that grin off your face. You were about 12 when they came for you. 3 men, cloaked, faces hidden. They knocked at your door before the sun had kissed the sky. No one saw you leave. You kicked. You screamed. They hit you with something heavy. When you awoke, you were in the back of a cart. Your hands bound. Your mouth dry. "Quiet now, clown," one of them muttered. "You'll fetch a good coin from the court." Turns out, the ones you thought laughed with you laughed last. The priest, the merchant, even the butcher whose name you'd twisted into a joke. They sold you. A jester in the making, delivered like livestock to the court of Lord Edric the Stern. You were thrown into a cold stone room beneath the castle, given stale bread and a promise. Make him laugh, or we'll make you bleed. They didn't kill you. Not right away. Turns out Lord Edric liked jesters. Or at least, he liked the ones that didn't insult his bald head. You met Marek, an old jester bent like a question mark. His laughter was a cough. His eyes carried stories. He taught you everything. How to read a noble's face when they're about to laugh or when they're about to draw a sword. Most important, mock the powerful, but never the ones who smile too quickly. Those are the ones who kill you when no one's looking. You grew fast, sharper, funnier, more careful, and soon they weren't laughing at the orphan boy from the village. They were laughing with the court's rising star. The boy who had nothing now had the attention of nobles. But attention is a double-edged blade, especially when one pair of eyes lingered longer than the rest. Eyes that would one day destroy you. At first, they didn't know your name, just called you the boy, but you made them laugh, deep, thunderous, unrestrained laughter. You imitated the queen's drowsy brother, so, well, the court couldn't breathe. You sang songs about nobles' affairs, changing names just enough to avoid the gallows. You juggled apples and insults, danced on tables, told truths dressed as jokes. And the king, he loved you. King Aldrich the Iron Hand, a man who hadn't laughed in 10 winters, until you made fun of his war council's decision to build a bridge where no river flowed. He spat wine laughing, declared you his tongue dagger. Your name became known, revered, feared, but with each joke, you walked a blade. Because in the court, the higher you climb, the further you fall. She wasn't supposed to notice you. Princess Eloan, daughter of the king, sharp of wit, hair like black silk, eyes like amber fire. She was untouchable, a future queen. Every lord's son wanted her hand. Every knight bowed deeper in her presence. But one day, after a particularly scathing parody of a pompous baron, you looked up, and she was watching you. Not like the others, not with ridicule or disgust, but with something else. Curiosity, delight, danger. You started slipping secrets into your shows. Little gestures, hidden phrases. A line from a poem you overheard her recite. A turn of phrase that made her lips curl upward when no one else noticed. And one night, she found you. In a library. She claimed she was searching for a book. You claimed you were hiding from a whipping. You talked for hours. She asked about your past, your village, the betrayal, the chain that brought you here. You asked about hers, lonely corridors, cold tutors, a future chosen without her voice. You laughed, together, and in that moment, you were no longer the fool. You were a boy, and she, no longer the princess. Just two souls lost in a palace of masks. It started with meetings in secret, by the garden, behind the chapel, in the shadows of old stone. You quoted poetry. She corrected your Latin. You taught her the art of mimicry, how to copy her father's grunts. She taught you how to read, really read, beyond signs and symbols. And one night, beneath a crimson moon, she kissed you. Soft, terrified, euphoric. You wanted to stop the world right there. But the world has no patience for fools who dream. Something changed in the court. The nobles whispered more. The queen no longer smiled, and the king grew silent again. Then came the evening feast, Lady Isara's wedding. A celebration of wine, gold, and grandeur. You were ordered to perform. You danced. You jested. But in your joy, your tongue slipped. You told a joke, half true, half innocent, about a young noble and a forbidden flower hidden behind royal walls. The hall froze. Only one flower bloomed behind those walls. Princess Aloan, and you had plucked it. The king rose, his face stone, the wine glass in his hand shattered as it struck the floor. You were dragged through the court in silence. No trial, no defense, no words from her. You searched the crowd for her eyes. She wasn't there. They tied your hands to a post in the courtyard. The court watched. So did the servants, even the rats. The executioner approached with a whip woven from boiled leather. The only sound louder than the whip was laughter, not joyful, cruel, mocking, from the same mouths that once cheered you. You were no longer the jester. You were the joke. You crawled to the riverbank, collapsed, blood mixed with soil, dignity scattered like crumbs. You waited to die, but death, like laughter, has its own timing. You walked for days. No destination, no plan, no shoes. Your back throbbed with every breath, flesh torn and raw beneath crusted blood. People passed. Some looked away. Others laughed, thinking you a madman in torn colors. You weren't even sure they were wrong. You begged, stole bread from windowsills, slept beneath carts and behind chapels. Once, you passed a village where a boy mimicked your limp to amuse his friends. You smiled and kept walking. Some weeks later, you found a tavern deep in the woods. Old beams, crooked chimney, a sign with no words, just a laughing skull. Inside, smoke and song clung to the walls. Drunk swayed. A bard strummed a lute with more wine than rhythm in his fingers. You offered to perform for a bowl of stew. The innkeeper laughed. You, a jester, you bowed, limped forward, and gave them a show they'd never forget. You told the story of a jester who loved a princess, a fool who climbed too high, who fell harder than any king. They roared with laughter. They threw coins at your feet, not out of pity, but because you were still good, still brilliant. That night, you slept in a bed for the first time in weeks, dreamless. But when you woke, the laughter fell hollow. They didn't know it was true. They thought it was all just performance. You almost wished it was. You traveled from town to town, a legend no one recognized. You performed in marketplaces, in back alleys, at weddings of peasants who paid with bread and eggs. Sometimes you caught whispers. They say the king's daughter never married. They say she weeps in her tower, holding a jester's hat. They say he died, or ran, or went mad. One winter evening, you found yourself in a crumbling chapel repurposed as a playhouse. The troupe there had lost its lead. They begged you to fill in. You said yes. It was your last show. You wore what rags you had left, painted your face with soot and chalk, and walked onto the creaking wooden stage. No lights, just torch glow, a dozen people in the pews. Faces tired, line cold. You began. You told them everything. Not as a jester, not as a character, but as yourself. You spoke of a village boy with a wicked grin, of betrayal, of castles and secrets, of love forbidden, of laughter that turned into punishment. You gave them your life, wrapped in rhyme and shadow. At the end, there was silence. Then applause. Real, gentle, honest. You bowed, and your knees gave out. You collapsed behind the curtain. They thought it part of the act. They didn't know. You'd given your last performance. They found you in the morning, lying still, eyes closed, a faint smile. You were buried behind the chapel. No family to claim you. No name on the stone. Just a jester's hat left atop the grave. And so you were born in laughter and died in silence. But the echo remains. You were the fool, the jester, the dagger wrapped in color. You were the one who dared to love too high and fall with a smile.